First, let me announce that all decisions of the board are final. If there's anyone agreed by the decision of this board, they may appeal to circuit court within 15 days of the board's decision. Also, no permits or license can be issued until that 15-day appeal period is expired or no appeal has been filed. For information regarding the board's decision or an appeal circuit court, the Office of Land Use Administration will be your contact. As you come to the podium, if you'll give us your name and address, if you direct your questions to the board, not to others in the audience or to staff. If we have a question for staff, we'll direct the question to them. Please turn your electronic devices off or to silent, and I'll ask the board members the same. Also, a reminder to the board members to turn on your microphone when you go to make a comment or vote. Okay, we've got a pretty busy meeting this time, agenda, so we're going to try to stick to the rules with the time and also start thinking about who is your individuals to speak at the podium. We'll limit it to 4 per side on an opposing or in favor of a motion, or an application, I should say. Okay, first we'll call roll call. Mr. Davis? Here. Mr. Coleman? Here. Mr. Metcalf? Here. Mr. Burrows? Here. Mr. Milling? Here. Mr. Golden? Here. And I'm William Guest. We have all 7 members here and present. It takes 5 to affirm a motion. If someone abstains or recuses himself, then we at least have to have 5 for a motion to carry. And we have Mr. Anderson here representing us today as the attorney. All right, I have been asked, and I'm sure maybe some of you, based on the number of handouts we have, that are here for application 7, which is the 5070 and 5054 Old Shell Road application. How many of you are here for that one? Okay, so a lot of you will get to leave after this one. So as you go to leave, if you'll kind of be quiet so we don't disturb the rest of the meeting, I'd appreciate it. But we're going to go out of order and ask that we call that case up first. If the applicant's rep will come up, please, for 5070 and 5054 Old Shell Road, OCR LLC.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Courtney Brett, that's B-R-E-T-T. My address is 121 Houston Street here in Mobile.
Okay. My understanding, this application, and we have a lot of handouts. I'll remind the board members, the majority of the handouts we received today are for this application or regarding this application. That my understanding that this one was recommended for a holdover.
It was, but we're asking to be heard today because our contract will expire in July. We won't make it to the next BOA without an adjustment to the contract.
Okay, well, I'm sure those who are in the audience would probably like for us to hear it as well. Okay, so you're willing to proceed based on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so please tell us why we should consider this application.
Okay, I am the architect for this project here speaking on behalf of the applicant today. I brought a quick slideshow. Most of the people in the audience have seen it. We've met with staff, with the council people, with the community twice. The site in question is the current Rester Brothers garage. We're here today seeking a few variances, but primarily we're here about a use variance. Right now we would be allowed to replace the Rester Brothers with another automotive use, but not with a small neighborhood restaurant, which is our desire. The only options for changing to this use, one would be to rezone it and use the village plan, but we, after speaking with staff and the community, we thought coming and asking for a use variance would be less impactful because it would allow this use as related to your conditions and your approval and not rezone the property in perpetuity. The restaurant we are hoping to put here would be a reuse of the existing garage, plus a new modern kitchen and bathroom facilities and parking across the street. We found many examples across the country of old garages that have been repurposed in this way. Many of them are in neighborhood settings like this here. We are on Old Shell Road. We're near Lavaretta Park. We are surrounded by neighborhood uses, but we're a part of Spring Hill that has been designated if we were tearing this down, rezoning and rebuilding, we would have the opportunity to use an overlay district in the village that allows for reduced parking, higher commercial uses. So we think what we're offering and what we are asking for is a nice middle ground between what is existing and what could be there in the future. We've been very careful to preserve trees on both lots. We have a few other asks today. One is multiple structures. In order to preserve some trees along the side of the property, we've actually broken out some of our storage and auxiliary uses into a separate building in the rear to avoid the footprint of one of the heritage trees. And off-site parking, you'll see on the plans that you have that a site of this size, we cannot park it adequately unless we go across the street to the site that is currently adjacent to the parking for Lavaretta Park. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Like you said, you've been provided a lot of information on this project, but we're hoping to be a good neighbor, and we're happy to have people here and speak up to both sides and make sure that we can meet everyone's needs today.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant's rep? Okay, I have a few questions.
Okay.
The property that's listed as the off-site parking, is that owned jointly by this applicant?
Both are under contract, neither have been purchased.
Okay, so it would be purchased if
it would be purchased, that's right.
Okay, you said you've met with a lot of the individuals in the audience and the neighborhood. What was the feedback from them? Did you get positive or negative?
We've gotten a mixture of feedback. I'm happy to tell you now some of the things that have come up that we've done our best to address that were not positive. One was ambient noise. I know a lot of people in the neighborhood are worried about any commercial use on this site since they are surrounded by residences. History and research shows that a small neighborhood restaurant like this would have decibel levels well below the city standards. I don't anticipate that this restaurant would ever exceed any noise ordinance that's already set by the city. We've assured the community as such. However, if it was to become another auto body shop that was more active but still permitted there, it's very likely to see decibel levels far higher than a restaurant. Generally 80 to 110 would be the measured decibel level for most auto body equipment. So in terms of noise, we do think that we can be below any city standards and a better use than the existing allowable use. Live music has come up a number of times. This applicant does not anticipate having regular live music. This is not intended to be a music venue. There's not a stage anywhere in the plan. He has, however, said that he wants the opportunity to have, whether it's a cellist at brunch or a quartet when he hosts a wedding reception. He doesn't want to say no live music because he'd like the opportunity for a special event to be able to have it. But again, that would all be within the rules and regulations of the noise ordinances and any special events permitting. Alcohol, we've assured the community that we have to get a liquor license just like anyone else that wants to sell alcohol within a restaurant environment. And if we were to close our doors at any time, any use that followed us would have to do the same thing. They would have to go in front of City Council. They'd have to get a liquor license for this site. Our liquor license wouldn't be tied in the event of a closure to the site. Let's see. Traffic, it will increase traffic. If the restaurant's successful, then obviously there will be people coming to the restaurant. So we want to be clear that we will be increasing traffic in that part of Old Shell Road. What we've tried to do to mitigate that is we've offered to put in crosswalks that meet the standards of Old Shell Road of the village plan. We can do crosswalks both across Old Shell Road and East Border Drive if those are preferable. We've also offered to extend the lighting that's been designated by the village of Spring Hill and set up along Old Shell Road all the way to our property to have a little bit better lighting. And we've provided a safe ADA drop-off zone to help slow down traffic there and give people a safe place to drop off passengers that's off of Old Shell Road. We won't have anyone backing onto Old Shell Road either, so we've done our best to look at the traffic considerations as well. And I think parking has also come up. We have parked for a gross floor area of 3,900 square feet. We have 41 parking spaces. However, we're happy to consider a cross-parking agreement with the city for La Veretta Park. So in off hours, if when the park is not in use, for example, evenings, dinner time, that we would be able to enter into an agreement if it was agreeable with the city to use and help maintain the La Veretta Park parking lot when it's not in use for the parking or for the park itself. If that helps alleviate some concerns about parking, then that's something that we would happily consider with the city.
Okay. Couple of the comments that we've seen are the location and relevance to the park, the children,
Yes.
alcohol being in a close proximity, traffic, which you've already addressed. You mentioned the parking, but you didn't mention the need for the aggregate surface for the parking.
Oh, yes, we were hoping to provide an aggregate surface. Our original proposal did not include the aggregate, but so many concerns came up about the serious drainage issues around these parcels within that neighborhood that we have gone back and asked for aggregate parking in order to keep as much pervious area as possible on both sites. We've also moved to a pervious paver within the courtyard of the restaurant itself to do our best to mitigate any drainage problems that are within the neighborhood existing.
Okay. So I guess to summarize, what is the hardship with this property that would justify the variance?
The hardship is primarily environmental. This site has been used for gasoline and auto body repair for many years. The environmental mitigation, demolition, there's a very deep water table. We've also found that ADEM does not have a no further action letter for this site. So the tanks were at one point removed, but there's no record of them being removed in an environmentally sensitive way. So the hardship for this site, when we've looked at it in a number of different ways that it could be developed, will come down to how those environmental factors are mitigated. They could be mitigated on site. We could be talking about soils removal. We could be talking about putting in permanent wells that ADEM monitors to make sure that the groundwater is gradually improving over time if for some reason there was groundwater contamination. The building is also built before the end of asbestos and lead paint, so we're also looking at surveys for the building itself, and very likely anyone who would ever remodel or demolition or do any demolition on this site is going to have a significant number of environmental concerns. So it's very unsuitable for residents because of those environmental concerns. As another auto body shop, it may be usable, but still extremely difficult to remediate the issues that are on site and continue using it in its current form.
Okay. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Miller?
As far as the environmental, has the person who currently has it under contract, have they done anything
The phase
recently?
1 has been completed and the phase 2 is in progress. We were hoping to have that by today, but the report is not in yet. So phase 2 environmental report has been in progress for a few weeks. So that includes drilling all the way down to that water table, testing the groundwater, testing soils in a number of locations on the site. That report will give us recommendations for what needs to happen in order to develop this site at all.
So the phase 1 recommended soil samples and water samples?
And water samples, and further investigation into the closure reports, since none were found, and ADEM has confirmed that nothing is on file for those tanks being removed.
And when were they removed?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Is there
it
any
up.
guesstimate or any kind of?
I believe there may be. We have to 93 or 94.
3 and 94. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions of the board? All right. Thank you. Anyone in the audience in favor of the application wishes to speak at this time?
We have a few names on the list, if that's okay.
Yeah, just pick 3 and that you think that can add new information or support what you had to say.
Sure. There's a few
Statement.
people I saw earlier. Man Adam, Thomas Myers.
As a formality, your name and address, sir.
I'm Marion Adams III, and I live at 11 Hillwood Road.
Okay, and you're in support of this?
I am in support of this. I'm a neighbor, live right down Old Shell Road. I think that this restaurant would be an enhancement to our neighborhood, an enhancement to our property values out there. I did attend the neighborhood meeting last week, and while there was some vocal opposition to the plan. There are equal number of people, I think, in favor of it. You know, in Spring Hill, we've had this big push with the sidewalks going on, which is a major enhancement, and we don't have anything like this out there. And the neighbors and friends I've talked to are very excited about having a place like this that we could walk and bike to. I just think it'll be a very nice thing, nothing like that out there. We're very pleased that we have a developer like this that's willing to invest this kind of money in our community. And, you know, based on what I saw at the meeting last week, he comes across to me as someone that's very willing to work with these neighbors who are right next door, that I understand some of the things that affect them, but he seems very willing, you know, to work with them and get around those issues. So I am in favor of it, and hope the committee or board here today will take a serious look at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Kelly Myers. I live at 4270 Horlowester Court. My neighborhood is directly across the street from this property. I've lived at this address for 17 years, and during those 17 years, I was the founder of a volunteer organization, nonprofit organization called Park Project 08, that worked to put in $250,000 worth of improvements to Lavretta Park. We spent several years doing that. We helped to establish the Country Club Village Neighborhood Association during that time, and I and my husband have served on the board for the Village of Spring Hill. I say this to let you know that we are firmly rooted in this community. We do not intend to move out of this neighborhood. We love our neighborhood. We love where it's located. We love the park. We know that change in any community is imminent, and we want it to progress in a manner that is both appropriate and beneficial to the families who choose to live here. Since learning of this project months ago, we have met as a neighborhood. We have talked amongst ourselves as a neighborhood. We have some that are in agreement, some who are not. I'm here today, this morning. I was able to get in touch with 20 households that gave me permission to represent them today, out of 26 households. We've met with our city council members, Gina Gregory and Joel Daves. We've had discussions with various city departments. We've met with traffic engineering and spoken with the fire department about different issues. We've met with the development team to express our concerns and have gotten feedback from them that has been positive, that they want to be a good neighbor in this community. Addressing some of the concerns, one of the concerns that's been raised is about the safety of children in the park. I can guarantee you, with the time that we have put in to the redevelopment of that park and living directly across the street from it, no one is more concerned about that park and the children in that park than we are. It's been the issue raised that it would be unsafe for children with drivers who are leaving and coming into this restaurant. I would argue that the safety hazards are not by people turning into this parking lot as much as they are the 400+ household residents in Country Club Village that are going straight on Parkway East, as opposed to the people that are turning in to use the parking lot. It's also been a concern raised that people would be consuming alcohol, and that would be a danger to children coming in and out of the park. The park closes at dusk. There may be some day drinkers, but the majority of alcohol consumed in that location is going to be in the evening hours when the park is closed, and there should not be children in that area. And our Mobile Police Department is certainly very capable of handling. This is not the first restaurant to serve alcoholic beverages and have drivers leaving after they've consumed them. The issue of zoning, one of the things that we requested early on was that this not go up for rezoning. Because it is in a residential community, we wanted to have more restrictions set on this property, and we felt like having the variance of use would protect our residential community more so than having it rezoned. As to the noise level, we know there will be added noise. Shaw Zislin has confirmed to us he expects for there to be added noise. For the most part, I think the noise coming from this business is going to be much like the noise that we already live with coming from the park. My home,
Continue.
okay, my home is directly across the street from the playground. When I am outside in my yard, on my back porch, I hear the laughter, I hear the screaming. It is not it's not offensive noise. It's happy noise. It's not something that bothers us. Occasionally, there are events held in the park from church groups or from family reunions where they do use PA systems and have music. That's not as enjoyable as the screaming and laughter, but it's tolerable, and it's temporary, and it doesn't happen very often. And I would say that the ambient noise coming from the restaurant is going to be more along the lines of the same noise we have from the park. It's going to be happy noise, conversation, light music. It's not going to be anything offensive. Our other concern was about added traffic. This is something that we have discussed with Joel Daves, with traffic engineering, and with the developer. And we do feel like the developer, if this becomes an issue for us, that he will work with us as he's communicated. As for the positives, most of us are excited about this. Ruster Brothers has not been a good neighbor to us for quite a long time. 10 years ago, it was a different place than it is now. The Ruster Brothers are no longer there. The place is covered with trash. It's covered with vehicles that I'm assuming are not running. And the noise does not end at 5 p.m. The noise does continue later into the evening, and there's been speculation that somebody may be living on the property currently.
Can I get you to summarize for the sake
Okay.
of time?
We have someone with a great track record of well-done, well-maintained establishments that are done in appropriate for the locations that they're in. And if right now, the momentum in Spring Hill, we have our park, we have our farmers market, the Village of Spring Hill improvements, our well-used sidewalks and streetscapes, and new businesses and recent new construction. And this investor is willing to bring us something that no one else has offered into our community. And it's right across the street from my house, and I would say, yes, please bring it. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question for the speaker.
Oh, Ms. Myers.
Just a point, since you were involved in the park, what is the parking surface in the park?
It is permeable pavement,
Okay,
permeable asphalt.
pavers,
No, it's permeable asphalt,
asphalt or concrete?
but it's a permeable asphalt.
Purpose, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, your name and address?
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Guest, board members. My name's Thomas Myers. I also live at 4270 Horlester Court, approximately 250 feet from the applicant property here. Actually wanted to address a couple of more technical points with the board today, not reiterate what Kelly just mentioned. But first wanted to thank Shaw Zislin, John Vallis, the team, and council members Gregory and Daves as well. They have conducted a very open process throughout this time. I've collected a lot of input from the neighborhood and wanted to thank them for that. There's, of course, no perfect solution in this kind of scenario. They've made a very good faith effort to collect that input and to actually make decisions and design changes based upon that input. And you'll certainly hear some doom and gloom scenarios, I'm sure, about kids being run over and parking run amok and so on. My background, I actually served on the Village of Spring Hill back in 2006. I was the point person for the zoning that we redid with Dever Cole and Partners. We had a nationally known firm come in and actually help develop that zoning and the master plan. So I wanted to highlight a couple of points where this development actually really supports the concept that we had within that Village of Spring Hill plan. It's a smart growth concept, transit-oriented development. The concepts around mixed-use, commercial and residential coexisting, pedestrian-oriented development, those were all very important to us at that time, and obviously still are. Shared parking was also a very important concept where we didn't want fields of asphalt covering Spring Hill going forward. We wanted sharing. This is a great scenario where having after-hours parking within the Flavoretta Park parking lot makes a lot of sense. Also, the ideas of traffic calming, having crosswalks, having more people active in a certain physical situation actually reduces the risk of traffic issues, pedestrian collisions, and so on. As Kelly mentioned, the applicants at the community's request are asking for a use variance instead of a complete rezoning of the property. That is actually good for the neighborhood. We would rather have a defined use and the risk that this business goes out. We're not faced with some other, less conforming type of application. As the applicant's rep also mentioned, the alternative zoning would have required a third less parking than what the standard city parking is. So any issues around number of parking spots relative to the square footage would be greatly alleviated. As well, the setbacks that are proposed are very much within that design criteria as well. There have been a couple of mentions around the drainage situation. There is an existing drainage problem. It's a city problem. There is not a storm drain within 500 feet of this property or any of the properties around there. So there's kind of an existing situation where there's no practical solution to get water from point A to point B. In the park, we actually had to deploy very large French drain systems to handle the runoff. As we mentioned, the permeable asphalt, it was a very expensive solution for the city parking lot at the park. So obviously there's a lot of valid discussion about kind of criteria, some of the impacts to the neighborhood, but we feel very comfortable that the developer has gone out of their way to help us, and we look forward to a new neighbor in the neighborhood. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gross.
I do. I live 250 feet. So I'm right across on Horlester, which is a horseshoe on the other side of Old Shell Road. I am pro. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Word of question, the business that's currently there, what was the zoning for that? Would that be? Again?
That would typically be a B3,
To be a
heavy
B3?
commercial.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other members of the audience wishes to speak at this time in favor of the application? We have room for one more person. You're welcome. If you want to come down here, or someone else? Sir, if you can, first name and address, and if you can summarize anything
Okay.
that hasn't already been
Sure.
stated.
Dean Waite, I live at 67 Ridgelawn Drive East, which is probably roughly a quarter mile from this location. I don't have anything really extra to add to what the Myers or Mr. Adams said, other than I do support this. I've talked to multiple people on our street, all of whom have young kids. We're excited about being able to walk to this venue, have a good meal. It fits in with the plan of Spring Hill, and so we're in support of that.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Those of you in opposition, if I can ask for four, one at a time.
Hi, I'm Philip Madonia, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Your address,
I live at 5006 Old Shell Road. My property is 90 feet from this property, and I have several objections, and I'd like to comment on some of the comments that were made. One, it was said that they had neighborhood meetings. There were 2 neighborhood meetings about this property that I and my wife were conspicuously left out of. So as far as being an open process. The other thing about city council members being open to discussion, I went to Jeannie Gregory's meeting because I was told it would be discussed there, and I had a couple of questions, and she cut me off, said this is not the time or place to discuss it. So in spite of my efforts, you know, I guess somebody says they've been open to discussion, but I haven't found that to be the case. But getting on with my talk, I'm here representing myself and my wife, and you have a packet there with 130 names on it from people that I've canvassed the neighborhood and talked to about this project. And these people are opposed to it. Now, these people who live in close proximity, who stand, I guess, the most to gain or lose by it. Now, my first objection is, one, we're trying to rezone this property, and I don't know that according to the enabling statute, number 115280, state of Alabama, authorizes the Board of Adjustment to rezone this property. Right now, the property is residential, single-family, which is not commercial property. And what we're doing by, what we're asking for is to make this very commercial. So on that point there, the fact that the Board of Adjustment doesn't have the legal authority to do it, that should be rejected. But let's talk about the merits of the petition. We talk about, it was mentioned by the architect, this was a small neighborhood restaurant, 160 seats. And I was told at the neighborhood meeting it was 80 seats. I was told 3 times by the developer that it was 80 seats, and until it was corrected, it's 160 seats, mostly outside. And when they open the garage doors on front and back, pretty much it's all outside bars. So, and with standing room, this is hardly, you know, a neighborhood, small neighborhood cafe here. And it may have 300 or 400 people, which means that the proposal is, the proposed building is too small for this site. Excuse me, the footprint is too big. The site is too big, too small for this building. Now, the other thing to consider is the hours of operation. I mean, this is going to be all day, you know. It says 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. on the weekends and 10 p.m. on weeknights. Now, that's, again, if you read the master plan, this is not what you call a neighborhood-friendly hours of operation. Say what you want. I've lived there for 26 years, and I've never been bothered by any noise that came from Rester Brothers. Granted, Rester Brothers is not what you call your garden club party, but you know what I mean. It is dirty. Now, the other thing is about the live music. Now, the petitioner says we'll have live music at the proprietor's discretion. Now, what does that mean? And if this proprietor says we're going to have live music only on 4th of July, what about when he sells this property to the next person? Are they going to have live music on every weekend? Now, the problem is that we do have noise ordinances. But the penalty for violating the noise ordinance are minimal at best, especially for a business. It would be pretty hefty for an individual, but for a business, the penalty for violating the noise ordinance is minimal. Now, and according to your own staff report, which I've read, we haven't really taken care of the parking or the traffic, and the parking especially. And in your staff report, it was said to have a neighborhood meeting to discuss the traffic with the neighbors. I was at that meeting, and we asked about the parking, as well, traffic and parking, said, well, we'll work with the city to have cars towed if they're parked illegal. If this place is going to be successful, then there will definitely be a lot of parking, a lot of overflow parking, more than what's there. Now, so lastly, or next to lastly, this property is residential 1, and we've not proven any hardship on this property. It's not that hard to build a home on this property. And with the environmental concerns, if the environmental problem is a problem, why hasn't something been done about the environmental problem before now? The EPA has a theory, one theory, the EPA is let the polluter deal with the pollution. So that is not a hardship on this property. I could buy the property tomorrow, and a builder will build me a house on it, and my son would love to live there. So that's not a hardship on this property. So in closing, I'll say until the petitioner can show a real hardship on this property to prevent him from its intended use, which is residential, I would ask that the committee deny this variance.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Burrows.
Philip Madonia, it's on one of your list. Yeah, Madonia.
I just got a couple of questions. How long have you lived there?
26 years.
26 years?
Yes, sir.
Has this property always been zoned R1?
Yes.
Since you've been there?
Yes.
And that particular service station or repair shop, how long has that been?
I've heard 40 years. I don't know exactly.
Longer than that.
How long has it been vacant?
It's not vacant. It's been in use, continuous use. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Metcalf?
Sir? Sir?
Sir, Madone?
Just want to clarify a couple things that you said for the record. No one's trying to rezone the property. You said that twice.
Yes.
This is a use variance, not a rezoning. I just didn't want the audience to I want them to understand.
I understand, but But what it amounts to.
No, sir.
Hold on.
It's not a rezoning, period. Secondly, you said this is very commercial. I don't know what that means, but a restaurant can operate under a B2 zoning. The use that's there, the appropriate zoning for that is B3, which is a heavier zoning than B2. And what are neighborhood-friendly hours?
9 to 5.
Based upon your opinion or a master plan? You referenced the master plan.
I have looked at the master plan, and and it said what are neighborhood-friendly businesses, the B1 businesses that have hours, like a doctor's office or a shop that's not going to have late-night hours, is what I've been told. I don't know what the exact hours are, but there are things in the master plan that call for what are neighborhood-friendly businesses.
Okay, so you don't know what those are. And just one other question, a personal question. Would you rather see that Rester Brothers building there into perpetuity or to see this use here?
I would rather see the building there in perpetuity.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Next, I'm sure, are you in favor or opposition? If you'll come down then. We're trying to be fair, have an equal number and amount of time.
Thank you. My name is Donna Cashin, and I live at 3 Harlow Ester Court.
Pull the microphone a little closer if you can.
Okay. My name is Donna Cashin, and I live at 3 Harlow Ester Court, which is about 300 feet from Rester Brothers, and it's right at the beginning of Harlow Ester East. I'm the second house on the left from O'Shell Road. And we have been in that neighborhood, not always in that house. We've been in that house for 17 years, and we've been in the neighborhood for 30 years. So, so I consider myself a long-term neighbor of that area. My husband and I turned in a packet this morning that addressed some of our environmental concerns and water runoff in the neighborhood, and I think you have that, and so that's pretty self-explanatory as far as the information that we wanted to share. But I did find something out this morning that I wanted to share with you, and that is that Rester Brothers has a covered container that you're supposed to put oil and things from cars and brakes and all that to go into, and then it gets supposed to be picked up by a company to take care of. And I found out this morning that the last pickup was in 2011 at that site for any kind of automobile pollution. They had one pickup in 2009, 3 in 2010, and 3 in 2011, and that's the last time it's been picked up.
How do you know the frequency?
Because I talked to the owner of the storage tank that is in the yard. Now, that I do not know if there was ever someone to replace them, but there is still a storage tank there, and they told me that this morning.
So another vendor could be picking it up?
It could possibly be, yes, but the one that's on site was picked up in 2011. Okay, I just wanted to share that before the rest of what we said was self-explanatory. And I just have a couple of questions as just a neighbor, and I don't necessarily have the answers, but I do have the questions. On the plans for this site, they said that the parking lot was going to be gravel that they added, and I didn't quite understand if that got changed, but on the basic information, it was supposed to be gravel, and they said it was right across the street from Border Lane from the Rester Brothers property where the restaurant's going to be. But actually, it's not. On the plot, right across the street is the city parking lot on O'Shell Road, and then behind that, where right now there are a lot of live oak trees and things, that's where the parking lot's going to be. So it's not across the street from the restaurant. It's like across the street and one lot behind that. So, so that was one thing, and that would kind of lead me to believe that most of the time people in the restaurant would park right across the street and closer to the restaurant instead of in a parking lot that was behind that parking lot. And it's going to be gravel, And I don't wear high heels anymore, but I know a lot of ladies wear the really high ones, and I would think that if they had a parking lot that had a surface like the city lot or a choice of gravel, that they would take the city lot. So I would expect a lot of people to be parked in the front lot and not in the back lot if there, unless there wasn't any available parking there. And we were hearing about the hours that the restaurant would be using the parking lot. And I lived on Brentwood Lane for a long time, and there was, before the parking lot was built, there was really no parking except a vacant lot, to park for the park. And people would park up and down on the fences on each side, and you had lots of parents trying to get their children out of the cars and their strollers and their things, and it was just a little tiny area right by the fence. So that was one of my concerns, that if this parking lot was being used a lot by a restaurant, that there wouldn't be adequate parking for the people taking their children to the park. And, another thing I noticed on the plot that I was questioning was that it's not supposed to be that much of the area covered by buildings and courtyards and all of that, but when you look at the plot, it's really 100%. I mean, the whole lot is covered by either buildings or a courtyard that's made out of pavers, brick pavers, and it's from the front all the way to the back of the lot and all the way to the sides. And unless I just misread what I'm seeing on the plot, that to me that's right at 100% coverage. And I'm concerned with water runoff and other problems because there's not going to be a place for the water to flow that's there.
That's kind of a reminder to kind of summarize.
Right. Okay, and the only other thing that I wanted to say was they were talking about the garage doors that were going to be in front and back of the property that they could open. And I know that's where food's being sold and served, I think, and I have a friend who has a business and with garage doors, and they are supposed to be kept closed now because a fly might get in the ice container in the building, and it's not even a food industry. So I don't exactly know how those garage doors are going to work if if they're not allowed to open them because of possible contamination. And I believe that's all.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman? Ma'am?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I just want to address one thing with you. You obviously went through great effort to take pictures and give to us about the apparent release of oils and other lubricants and such.
I helped my husband.
And I totally understand that. But I guess I was a little confused because those issues, it seems like that would be rectified by this development, not continued. So I just didn't understand that you're in opposition to this, and the development would correct these problems.
Well, the concern that we had was the environmental issues already in place. I mean,
well, those issues are not addressed either by the city or us. They're addressed by ADEM.
Okay.
And in order for the development to go further, they will have to satisfy the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. So that's not part of what the city does.
Right.
And the city won't issue any permits until all that's done.
Yes, okay. And the city, a company was there this weekend doing boreholes across the street.
Trying to determine what is there that would be corrected.
Right. So that was just, we don't know, but that was just a concern.
Right. And if the development is not done, then there's nothing requiring for it to be cleaned up. It could sit there for a long time and have those conditions to be continually existing.
This is true, and I was going to say when I started, and I forgot about it, but we would love to have something to be there besides Rester's. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible lot, and it's a horrible environment, and it doesn't look like even the picture that they were showing. I mean, it is really run down, and we're not real sure what's going on there, but I'm not 100% sure that there's not something else going on.
Thank you for your time. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Clark. I live at 3 Crest Court, less than 100 yards away from Rester. I am opposed to this granting of the proposed variances at both 5070 and 5054 O'Shell Road. I also represent more than 125 residents who signed our petition, which you have, asking for denial of these variances. A team of neighbors, including myself, went door to door asking them to sign the petition. Neighbors in Country Club Village, neighbors on Horley-Ester and Crest Court, neighbors down O'Shell Road, and in Ravine Woods as well. We stayed within less of half a mile because these are the people who are directly impacted if this development goes through. The property sits in a residential neighborhood surrounded by houses. It is going to create, and Thursday at our neighborhood meeting with the developers said that if his restaurant is successful and he plans for it to be successful, it's going to cause traffic issues, it's going to cause noise issues, it's going to cause lessening of the enjoyment of our homes in that neighborhood. And over 125 people within half a mile agreed with us on that. We are very, very concerned about the impact of traffic. I've lived in my home on 3 Crest Court for over 17 years. My daughter was hit by someone coming over as she was trying to turn into Crest Court because O'Shell Road is a very, very busy mainstream road now. The parking, with off-site parking, one of the things that we're very concerned about for the children, we not only ride bikes in our neighborhood, the people that we surveyed, their kids rode bikes to the park and around the park. If you look, if they put the picture of the parking that they are proposing, they access not only border, but they also can enter and access on Parkway as well. So you're going to have people, and at our meeting Thursday night, Shaw said he wanted more than 375 people a day to go to his restaurant. And I don't believe that we're going to have people using Uber. I believe that we are going to have people driving to our restaurant. Yes, we will have some walkers, but I want you to think about the people who come to the park, the moms who are pushing their kids in strollers, and I happen to be one of those gentlemen. I have a 6-month-old granddaughter and a 4-year-old granddaughter that I take to the park almost every day. I've been talking to the parents who come to that park, and they come from all over. They're all concerned about this intensive parking in and out while they're trying to get their kids into the vehicles. Ever held on to a slippery 4-year-old while you're trying to put your 6-month-old in the car seat? All it takes is 1 second of inaction. We're quite worried about the traffic increase on O'Shell Road itself. 375 people a day is his minimum number of folks he wants at his restaurant. Divide that by 4 if we were lucky enough to get 4 people in a car. How many cars that is coming up and down O'Shell Road added to our traffic already. When you talk about parking, you're getting ready to talk about parking on my street. I was part of the group that met with the traffic engineer, and she admitted if that restaurant was built, Crest Court would have a traffic problem. If you look at the number of parking spaces, 41, 9 of them are on the street. The employees aren't going to park there, but that takes you down to about 32. He wants a staff of 30. I know they're not going to be there every day, but at least 15, right? Where are they going to park? That takes up half the parking spaces. Now, all of a sudden, we're flowing over into the park, and y'all, during the summer, that park goes until 8 o'clock at night. It doesn't close at 5. Dusk is 7 and 8 o'clock, and it is used. So if they can't park in the parking lot, and they can't park in the parking lot, guess where they're coming, guys? They're coming to my street, Crest Court. I had one neighbor said, well, Pat, turn your sprinklers on. Then I had Shaw who said, we'll help call and tow it. That's how neighborhood friendly the developer is. He's going to call and help tow it. One more thing, noise. 11 to 11 on the weekends. I know our noise variance says 10:30, 10 or 10:30, but you ever tried to shut your neighbors down? You ever been at a bar and tried to shut a bunch of happy people down? Our kids go to bed at 7 and 8 o'clock at night. They're going to be partying over there, and trust me, folks, I work with the kids at South, and I work with the kids at Spring Hill. They're going to be partying. We're going to have some adults over there partying, too. And at 10:30, when it shuts down, they've been partying from 7 until 11 while we've been trying to get our babies to sleep. That's a lot of noise, not giggles. That's a lot of noise. He said music, no live music. No, he didn't. And he didn't just say 4th of July. One example he gave was, if a fraternity or sorority comes to me and wants to have one of their fraternities, I'm going to let them do it. Now, think about a fraternity party in that courtyard. Would you want to live across the street from that? So I'm asking you, please look at our petition. More than 125 people say, please do not grant these variances. We're worried about safety of our children. We are worried about safety of all of the residents who jog, who run, who bike. And we're worried about the traffic and the noise really causing us to lose our quality of life. Thank you very much.
All right. Any questions? Mr. Burrows?
Now, let me ask you a question. And I don't want to embarrass you or either.
Is your mic on? Mr.
No,
Burrows?
but I can hear him.
I just want to ask you a question, and this is going to get a little personal. Would you prefer to live with this particular or the restaurant?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. That's now on my list. I did not realize that ADEM was not pursuing it. I did not realize that it was not being pursued by the city. So they're on my list, and I think you can tell by the information that I've shared with you today, when you're on my list, I'm coming after you. I want that cleaned up. I want that cleaned up. We have a neighbor who is willing to buy that property and build a house for his son. I don't have to make that choice, you guys. And that's what we've tried to tell the neighborhood. This isn't our only choice. We have other choices. And so I want that cleaned up. But I don't think the restaurant's the only thing that will clean it up. Okay?
Well, I'm generally in defense of R1 neighborhoods. I'm a community organizer myself for years. So. But I have an issue here myself. It's the blight of this particular area versus a brand new restaurant.
But here's the thing. I don't have to worry about any of them running me over. I don't have to worry about any of them running my grandchildren over. Shaw made the comment last Thursday because somebody said, are you worried about blood on your hands? And he said one kid would be acceptable. And he laughed about it. No, do not roll your eyes at me. He said that.
Ma'am.
I'm sorry. He didn't need to roll his eyes at me, okay? All right.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Burrows?
Yes, I'm through.
Okay, thank you,
I have
Mr.
two
Burrows.
questions before,
All right.
since you live there, you'll know this specifically. Parkway Street, that has the light, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and that's where they have the convenience store on the corner.
That's where,
correct?
yes, the food pack is.
How much business traffic does that create? It doesn't seem to be that busy with that particular business.
Well, I will tell you this, and I think my neighbor right here will tell you this as well, because we've shared this with both of our councilmen. You push that button to cross that street, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. Because, you know, red lights don't count for anything in this day and age. It doesn't mean stop anymore, and they go through it. The food pack has a nice, steady business, but it doesn't have 350 people a day.
And they close fairly early.
And they are closed at 7 o'clock. Absolutely, they close at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And at our Thursday meeting the other day, he said he might open for breakfast. So now we're talking 8 to 11. It's a lot of hours, Mr. Burrows.
All right,
It's
thank
a
you.
lot of hours.
We appreciate it.
Just one other question, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry. One question.
My question is, are we dealing with two signed petitions? One from you?
No,
It's
sir.
the same. Same
You should
petition.
have one from both of us. We work together as a team.
130
130
combined.
altogether. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Against it.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment.
All right, Mr. Coleman?
Now, a lot of you are talking about traffic and traffic on Oak Shell Road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you live in an area that's going to increase in traffic every
Absolutely.
day. If they build a stadium out there, what you going to do?
Oh, Gina told me that if they
So,
built
I mean-
the stadium out there, Mr. Coleman, that we weren't going to have that traffic. It was going on Ziegler.
That traffic going to go right down Oak Shell Road.
And what I said, Mr. Coleman, was I go to Tuscaloosa and I know the back roads. I don't always go out the 4-lane they tell me to go out.
Right.
So truly, we have asked that and addressed that. We know our traffic's going to increase. South, we have kids flying down that road to go to 7 o'clock in the morning class.
Right.
We know our traffic's going to increase, and we can't do anything about that. We're proud of it. Go Jags. I'm a USA graduate.
Right.
But here's the thing. This restaurant is something that we can do to stop the traffic. We really do, Mr. Coleman, understand that
That's
we are going to
minimal
have
stuff.
increased traffic. But we don't have to invite it into our neighborhood.
Mr. Coleman, do you have any other questions?
No, that's right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. I think that concludes. I think we've had 4 from each. 3? Okay, 3. All right, so we have room for one more. If somebody can summarize or has anything new to add? Yes, ma'am. And I'm not trying to be short with anybody. I want to give everyone equal time. I just want to make sure we're fair about this.
I have just 1 or 2 things to add.
Name and address.
Deborah Madonia, 5006 Old Shell.
Okay.
My husband, Dr. Philip Madonia, spoke earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
The petition that you have just asked about,
Yes, ma'am.
I actually just received another page here, which would make it to about 140 names of people in the closest proximity that are affected most directly by what is happening. Most of those people wanted to be here today, and they could not be here because they work. Most of those people are on Border Drive, which is directly behind and will be severely impacted by the traffic, by the noise, by the effect of what's going on there. Border Drive and the surrounding area in that immediate vicinity. We were told as we canvassed the neighborhood and walked that neighborhood, my husband and I did this several afternoons, in the late afternoon. We need a voice here in our neighborhood. We do not want this. We talked at great length about this gentleman's question to my husband, because the question has been posed, well, it's better than Rester Brothers. And it might be. As far as appearance is concerned, it might be better than Rester Brothers. The best thing for that is to realize that this isn't either or. That property, if it is for sale, it is zoned R1. My husband has already said we might have been willing to buy it and build a house for our son that we're hoping is going to return to Mobile this coming year. And I'm hoping he is. There are many beautiful homes that have been built on Old Shell Road going down across from Spring Hill Presbyterian. Another one just like those would certainly add to the appearance of our neighborhood, which I know that's what the village of Spring Hill is so concerned about. This isn't an either-or proposition. It's not either Rester or hangout bar and restaurant. There are other alternatives for a residentially zoned piece of property. We have, I'm not going to elaborate on that, but I have talked to several people who have several ideas for things that could have gone there other than a bar, where you have alcoholic beverages in a residential neighborhood and loud noise, outdoor bar with loud noise. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Davis, you had a question?
I guess my question is, Mr. Chairman, No, ma'am,
I
you
think
fine.
he has a statement.
I think my question is for the applicant at this point. Can she come back?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
My question of
Pull your
deep,
mic up.
deep concern is that I was very pleased initially when I heard that you have met with the community. And I felt real good about that, but now I'm hearing some things that were not addressed, especially with the lady that spoke about the children. And I do not live in that area, but I have a lot of admiration for the sidewalking that has taken place, and to see the families going back and forth down Old Shell Road and in the park, and I know it's a heavily populated park, but I'm getting an imbalance here. You know, my thing is harmony is the strength of all institutions, and it seems like I didn't get it all when I listened to you. Now listening to the, especially the opposition, and then with the children and the strollers and 6-month-old grandchildren and all of these concerns that I'm hearing. How do you respond to that, ma'am?
I'll do my best to take a look at it. If you don't mind, can you put the plan back up? One of the suggestions that came to us fairly late last week that I think we can take a look at maybe to help some of those concerns is to gate the access onto the park side of that lot so that traffic is kept between the restaurant and the parking lot and doesn't have the opportunity to exit out into the park unless the park is closed. That suggestion seemed very reasonable and very easy to accommodate. I personally live on a very high traffic road in Midtown. I understand the concerns. I'm out with my baby in a stroller in Midtown a lot on streets that are almost as busy as Old Shell. So I completely empathize with the concerns of people crossing the street. The offers to put in additional crosswalks, anything that we can do to make it, to alleviate those concerns, I think the applicant has tried his best to put those on the table. The gate, like I mentioned, is a new one, but if there's any other suggestions, I'm happy to consider them.
I have a question, and it's been proposed by some of those in opposition, that this property could have remained residential and possibly be developed that way. Has any other consideration for this property other than a restaurant with a bar function been considered?
For this applicant, we looked at other ways that we could develop the property to be financially feasible. Now, he is a businessman, so they were all B1 or B2 uses. We ruled out residential very early on as something that would be financially viable for us. However, most of the other uses we looked at, again, this is viable. 80 indoor seats is only about 20 tables. To put that into perspective, he tried to be open that he does want the ability to have outdoor seats as well, but limiting it to that number of indoor seats that could actually be used year-round.
Does the applicant have a restaurant or restaurants in other areas of Mobile?
No. The closest restaurants are the ones that are in Baldwin County. He owns the Gulf Restaurant in Orange Beach, Alabama, and he owns the Hangout Restaurant in Gulf Shores.
Okay. I'm just curious if there was somewhere we could kind of relate to. So, all right. Any other questions?
Yeah. I still like to
Davis,
continue. I have to be very, very careful with any decision I make as it relates to Mobile as a whole. Now, I'm looking at 140 signed signatures on one side, and the other side, I'm not getting any mass support that has come in here with signatures. Everybody's not able to attend these meetings, and for this board member, signatures help me to understand the feeling out there. And what I'm hearing, I think it needs to be heard by you from the persons who are in opposition here, because we got some serious stuff here. And the thing that makes it so crucial to me is when I hear about these children and strollers, and I'm very cognizant of what's happening there with the sidewalking and the park. I mean, that park is amazing, and I just thought it was going to pan out a little bit better than what it ended up being, and I thought I would say that, Mr. Chairman. Because,
you're welcome to.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple questions. And Courtney, before I ask these questions, Doug, do you know a couple of things? One, as far as the environmental, and talking about that as an environmental hardship, I know in commercial projects that I've been involved in, there's a lot of times a different standard for residential versus commercial from ADEM. Do you have any feel on a property like this whether that would apply?
Not really. I'm not sure how ADEM would treat it any differently. My main thought on that would be using it as a single-family residence. I don't think that's going to be possible from an environmental viewpoint because a lender is not going to loan money for anybody to build a house here. Now, somebody can say, well, I can come in
Until
and
it's
pay
clean.
cash for it.
Until it's clean.
Metcalf, excuse me.
But the next person who would have to get a loan when the person that paid cash for it, when they want to sell it, and please, don't take my comments as for or against. I'm just trying to answer the question from a legal viewpoint. When the person that paid cash for that wants to go and sell it and his buyer has to get a loan, nobody's going to be able to get a loan when their lender finds out the past use. So at that point in time, somebody's going to try and come back and make it go back for a use variance. So that's how I perceive the environmental issue.
Okay. Another question. Do you know, as far as the liquor license is concerned, do you know, are those assignable? So stated
I'm sorry,
earlier.
I didn't repeat that.
Are liquor licenses assignable?
No.
Okay.
So every different user would have to go back to City Council and the ABC Board to get their own license.
Okay. And then lastly, I guess, as far as the parking lot that's currently there that's being used by the park, how would that be policed in this type of situation? I mean, it couldn't really, could it? I mean, as far as being used for the restaurant versus being used for the park?
I'm not sure if it really can be policed other than posting. I'm not sure if the city, if the city wanted to restrict that and not allow restaurant guests to use the city parking lot, they could gate it at night, but I don't think that's practical. So I think after, well, not even after dark, I think 24/7 while the restaurant's open, both parking lots would probably be used by restaurant patrons. The applicant probably should go to the city and get a use permit to be able to use that during certain hours.
Thank you. Okay. You know, I'm sorry, I was just going to ask the question to the applicant. And I'll preface this by saying, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of these type of mixed-use developments. I think they add, if done properly, I think they add a great quality to a neighborhood. I think you can see it in Mobile. I've experienced it in Midtown neighborhoods that I've lived in. And so, you know, my concern is that, you know, the scale of the project and have all the details been fully vetted. You know, we've got environmental that hasn't been completed, but you're, you know, touting an environmental hardship. It seems like to me that the applicant's asking for things for pretty broadly as far as music, you know, allowability and things like that. And so from my standpoint, it seems like to me that it's a little premature from that standpoint. And so, you know, and I'm just speaking personally, not for anybody on the board, but to me it seems like, you know, the request for a holdover is appropriate here. But I want to clarify, because when you first started, I mean, is that something you're open to, or do you want a decision up or down today?
I think he's looking for a decision one way or the other today. If a holdover is what you're in consensus on, then that's absolutely what I'll accept.
Okay.
I understand your concern.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Did we,
Hold on, Mr. Holden.
Did we have the hours of operation for the restaurant?
Yes, the hours that he provided, I believe within the application were 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends. But could
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Golden, you had a question?
Did you mention at some point that the pavers in the patio would be pervious?
Yes, and obviously in order to actually get site plan review, all of our water that falls within the site itself would have to be contained and remediated properly. In order to do that, the pavers would have to be permeable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have a question to the chair.
Yes.
To consider a holdover, how procedural would that be? And when we gave that option in the beginning, can we revert back to optioning, Mr. Counsel, to having a holdover?
No, that's certainly up to y'all, and there might be some issues as far as the noise and the music and the size of the development that could be discussed with the neighbors to help come to a better solution. I mean, it's a situation where they are never ever going to be able to please all the neighbors, and I understand that, and so do y'all. But are there issues out there that can be worked out to a little better middle ground? Maybe so.
my thought is that the applicant had the opportunity when we started this to request a holdover, knowing that there was opposition and questions. And based on your statement, they're on a time frame to make a decision. So I realize at this point you've heard everybody, and now there may be opportunity that you wish you would have taken, but unless there's a majority of the board wishing for a holdover, I'm at a point that I think we need to give consideration to everyone that spoke today for a decision. Any other questions or comments from the board before we?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Metcalf first.
A couple of things real quick. Does Border Drive currently have sidewalks?
Border Drive does not have any sidewalks.
But there will be on both sides with this development.
In the proximity of the development, and I think it leads to the parking lot that they're proposing.
Okay. Do you happen to know how many, well, they may know, how many houses are in that neighborhood behind the park? They probably do. 505 in all. Okay, that's good. And then also, council, although what Mr. Chairman just said about the holdover and being heard, once the application has been, the applicant has made their points, can they still withdraw?
They can withdraw or
before a vote,
or they can agree to a holdover. I mean,
right.
Either way.
But it would account for the same thing, because if it gets turned down, they've got to wait 6 months before they can reapply. Correct or incorrect?
Yes.
Okay, so they could withdraw.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll ask you one more time, and then I'll allow the
I'm happy for it to be heard, and I want to thank you, and I do want to thank everybody that's participated in this process. Thank you for your time.
Is it your applicant's decision?
Wish to be heard today, yes, for a decision to be made today. Thank you.
Okay, not a holdover. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
think one thing that maybe we've not asked for, since
Yes.
we do have so many people, is a show of hands, both for and against. Could you ask that, please, sir?
Yes. Those in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Okay, those in opposition?
May I put up two, since I had to let my daughter go take care of my grandchildren?
Okay.
Can I go get my grandchildren?
We're good. Thank you. All right. Any further questions of the board? Ms. Gregory, you're here today, and you've probably heard more about this than anybody. Would you have anything to add?
I'm happy to come speak if you want me to.
Yeah, please. So maybe we can get the representative's perspective.
I'm Gina Gregory. I'm president of the Mobile City Council and also the representative of the area where this project is proposed. I normally don't speak at these meetings. I make it a point not to, because you are an independent board and you make your decisions based on the information that you have. And I don't want to influence your thinking one way or the other. And that is what I have told some of the people in my community who've asked me to speak. So with that said, I don't know how much I can add. I know that there is a lot of opposition as well as a lot of support. Some of the meetings that you have heard about, I did hold a district meeting that focused on some things outside of this particular development. So that was not a focus, therefore we were not debating this particular development at my district meeting. However, Joel Daves and I, who is a representative from District 5, we facilitated a meeting last week with the community and the developer. That was really the second meeting that had happened. There was a first initial meeting that the developer held, and they used Planning Commission rules to invite people who live within 300 feet of the project. So therefore, not everybody who was interested went to that meeting, which is also why Joel and I held a second meeting, and we expanded the reach of the people who were invited to that meeting. So basically, there have been two meetings, one really that encompassed the whole neighborhood. Some of the people who live on Horlister and Crest Court have come together and met themselves outside of me. I know Councilman Dave's also met with the Horlester Group. So they're having meetings. I know that both sides have spoken with department heads. They've done their research. Like everybody, for the most part, in this building, I would love to see something in the Restorers project other than what's there now. It is a blight on the community. There is no way anybody would want to develop anything next door to that. And having that park right there next to this Restorers development is tragic. It needs to be gone. I know that for it to be developed, the environmental issues will have to be rectified. There is no doubt about that. So whatever goes in there, we'll have to do that. I would love to see something developed there. However, what is developed needs to be something that the community will embrace. And I think there is enough good there that this could be a possibility, but there are still some issues that would have to be worked out. And I don't know that every issue could be worked out. I think some concessions could be made, some conditions could be placed on the variance that might make it more palatable. You know, and in that respect, I would prefer to see it held over in order to try to work it out. But I'm not the applicant, I'm not the developer, and if they don't want a decision, if they want a decision made today, then that's up to them. So, you know, I'll have to leave that to you. But again, as the district representative, I certainly want to see something better there. And the developer has agreed to put in the Village of Spring Hill streetscapes, the sidewalks, the lights, the benches, everything there, which will certainly improve the area. Whoever goes in there, we would like to see that happen. The village works with the developer as they come in to try to get them to agree to the concepts. You know, the Village of Spring Hill does not get involved in whether we want the development or not. It is if a developer comes in and if it's going to be developed, then we want them to try to work with us on those concepts. So, you know, trying to stay neutral as best as possible. But again, you know, if you're asking the developer if he wants a vote today, then that's up to them and to you.
All right. Thank you. We've concluded on the comments. I appreciate it. All right. Staff, anything to add? Mr. Anderson? Okay.
One comment before we take the vote.
Mr. Coleman, before we call for a vote on this.
For you, for those of you that are there, and you're asking, there's a possibility that you may compromise. And compromise isn't a 50-50 proposition. It never is, never was. You ask for something and you're willing to give up something. It doesn't have to be equal, it just has to work. It just has to work. So if you can talk to each other and come up with a compromise, maybe it'll work for everybody involved. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. Try to make it work. You're looking for something that's going to improve your neighborhood. Give it a chance. Give it a chance.
Excuse. Yeah. No, we have to maintain.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Metcalf?
This is a bit unusual, but it is my prerogative to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to hold this over. I know that the applicant said that they want decision, but I can make a motion.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I'm doing, to hold it over until the next meeting.
Can
So
I
that they can,
hold on.
so they
Mr.
can do
Metcalf?
exactly what we just said, which is to try to come to a compromise. If not, they don't have to go any further. But I personally think it's good. I think that it is what smart growth is all about. I'm not a planner, but that's the way I feel about it. So that being said, my motion is to hold it over.
Your motion's for 30 days to the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, does that give, when's the next meeting, Bert?
August the 7th.
August the 7th, as Mr. Burrows said.
So 3 weeks, approximately. Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm concerned at this point with the initial statement made by the applicant that if it's not resolved today, then they're out of the game because of lease agreement or something of that nature, something that ends this month. I mean, how does that pan in, or is that out of the door? What we holding over for?
For, I think, more discussion with the community and to address maybe some concerns. Okay. I have the motion has been made with a second, so therefore we're calling for a vote. Any further discussion? Comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. So it's held over 30 days. We appreciate everyone's time that's been here today. We'll give you ample time to depart. Yeah, we're going to take a 2-minute recess, and then we'll start again. Thank you. My children have been over there. Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
God bless you.
All right, you have a good day. Yeah, thank you.
God bless you. Man, I thought everybody's here to hear mine.
Aren't you glad? Otherwise, they're here to see Don's.
He's a client of mine. He does that for me too. Everybody left. Oh, I got to stand up. That was a good close. That was a tough one, man.
Hey, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's why we get paid the big bucks, right?
Oh, Lord mercy. Oh. Like you get paid by the hour. Yeah. I'll figure out how to make it up somewhere. Shit, I'm doing like you though. I'm doing 2 of them.
How you come along?
Both the same.
How far along are you? 3 weeks. Wow. Now you have a daughter already, right? Son, is he looking forward to it? Yeah. Start sharing and yeah, he'll be a good big brother.
Concern though, Mr. Chairman, is that it's true.
I think any business there is going to be concerned, but the fact that there's expanded parking. So. You know, have you been to the park? Yeah. Yeah, because when we went. We went. Parking even then was something. We were up in here. Seems like there's more parking up there. Anyway, somehow we were up in here. I think there's on-street parking or something. So I don't know how much comes from that area or not, but anyway, we'll see how it sorts out next month. I might not be here next month.
No, you can't stay away. You have to come back.
Yeah.
Hey, look here, you entertain the motion.
No, that was Mr. Metcalf. I have to. Yeah.
Hey, you're right. Let Don go next. I'm gonna sit here.
Yeah. Milling, you still live over there, right? Didn't you live over in that area? Oh, you're further down. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Quiet. So where you fit in that group? Were you the young or the old? Are you in the young group or the older? You're older. Yeah. I've seen you hanging out with the fraternities and the sororities, right? All right, I think we're going to resume here. Yeah. All right, Lisa, you ready to start again? All right, we're back to our regular scheduled meeting. Ryko Signs, Inc. for Pottery Barn. Application 6108-5414.
All right. Wade Wright, Ryko Signs, 3345 Halls Mill Road. I'm not
Okay.
sure if I want to go right after that or not. but
No,
let's-
I don't know either. Of course, you've seen the staff's recommendation for denial. You want to tell us why we ought to consider otherwise?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just the reason for the application on Pottery Barn is on the signs in the back, they are trying, what they're attempting to do is to do internet sales and have the product delivered and picked up at the store. So when people come to the back of Legacy, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been back there, there's nothing distinguishing any door or anything. People are parking next to the door, not pulling over to the other side of the driveway, so then when other vehicles are coming through, they're having people block. They want folks to come to the back store, otherwise they got to come in the store and the goods are in the very back of the store. So they're just trying to, you park here, you go in this door for pickup, and as I understand it is primarily for internet products that have been shipped to the local store. I don't know why they don't ship it to the household unless a lot of that stuff's breakable, but that's what's been explained to us. So they're asking for just 3 parking signs reserved for Pottery Barn customer pickup, and then 1 on the wall just designating that back door. As far as the signage on the front, they have this canopy that comes out, which I understand is their standard branding, and they are said that so far their experience is people are complaining that they can't see the letters up on the wall and walking past the store.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Metcalf?
Wade, have you talked to them about an either-or on the signs on the front, either a canopy or maybe eliminating the one on the facade?
I hope you understand this. They have their standard branding.
Well, I know, but they had that when they leased the space.
I understand.
So I was just
But
curious.
that is, and that's the answer. We got back our standard branding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question maybe for staff. What,
Ms. Golden?
the sign in the rear, I mean, how's that any different than, you go to Babies R Us in West Marine, and they've got all those signs in front of each parking spot that says, this is for, don't park here, you got to park here,
Well, in this case, first of all, are those signs permitted? They may not be. And since the sign is specifically saying that it's reserved for Pottery Barn under our regulations, it's considered advertising. But one other item that I would like to point out for this specific request only is that when I pulled the approved site plan for the development, there isn't any parking here at all. No designated spots. There is, in fact, a dumpster sitting out here now by itself, which is violation, which is separate from this application. But by trying to put in parking here, you may cause other problems associated with fire code compliance. So regardless of whether or not the signage gets approved, the parking itself may not get approved to be placed in the back here on this particular location.
If I may just add, but people are doing it anyway. They just don't know where to park, and they don't know what door to go in. That would work. That would work. And, the parking's not for somebody to go shopping. It's for them. They've been notified that their product is at the store. Go the back door, shipping, receiving's there. They give it to you, help you load it in your car, and you're gone.
I could see this in the front, like you have curbside parking for
Right.
restaurants for pickup. Many of them, you see that now? In the rear, as Bert alluded to, that wasn't really a part of the site plan. It was parking in a receiving area for the public. If anything, it was just for trucks and normal delivery. And if the dumpster's been relocated to kind of fit this model,
Yeah.
it's adding to the problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just on
Yes.
that note, this isn't a PUD.
Actually, it is.
Is
There
it?
are multiple buildings on the site. You have the freestanding tropical smoothie place, and then the dumbwaiter building is separate, so it is.
So
a
it was site plan specific?
It is.
Okay, but if we approve these, the signs, then the parking is for someone else to worry about?
That is correct.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
it possible we look at one of the photographs that were sent in?
Mr. Chairman has the file.
Let me pull it. Because, I mean, it's, the sign, the back faces basically nothing, and again, they're just trying to let people know where to go. The only thing it's going to solve is send the people to park curbside in the front, which to me is going to even block traffic more.
Would any of you wish to see the pictures? Here, I'll let you take this as primarily what we're discussing.
And the reason why, there is a lane through there, and the parking signs would go on the away from the building side, not against the building, so that's one of the things they're trying to do.
If you give us a second just to
Sure.
share this. Gentlemen, I'll pass this down. Well, actually, I see two different issues here. The signage for the customer pickup's one, and then the front of the building canopy. I don't see any great benefit to, my personal thought is to adding that, but I'll see if there's anyone either in favor or opposition. But the curbside pickup for customers, it seems to be more of a common practice now.
Right.
At least more in the restaurant service. Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, anyone in the audience in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition today? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion or any further discussion, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of both.
Okay. I have a motion to approve with a second.
Second.
Any conditions?
Nope.
There are none. Okay, I have a motion with a second. Any further comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote opposed.
I'll
So we
vote
have one
opposed.
opposed. Pardon?
I vote opposed.
We have two opposed. Motion carries, though. So your requests for both variances are approved. Okay, thank you. And you're on the next one, right? Is this the same
Ditto,
situation?
ditto.
Well, this is the same customer, just to let you know. And this one, though, and I'm sorry, Wade Wright, Reco Signs. This one's just strictly for the signs in the back. They have the same issue Williams Sonoma does. They just want to put that by the door. That is an ADA compliant sign, and these parking signs, again, are not by the building. They're on the other side of the little back alley, I'll call it.
And in this case, there actually are designated parking spaces back there.
Okay, and the proposed sign is for customer pickup as well. Just out of curiosity, how do they gain attention or get someone to know that they're at the rear of the building?
They supposedly are telling them, come to the
How do they know
back of the...
somebody's back there? I mean,
Right. And I understand what it is. They just don't want to have to be dragging stuff through the store and then having to load it at the front in that parking lane right there.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant on this application? Anyone in favor of the application or the variance request? Anyone in opposition? Okay, this one I actually based on the fact that there's designated parking. I'm in a little bit more agreement that this would be an appropriate use. And you said they would be ADA compliant and
Yeah,
such.
the one on the wall would be,
Right. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve it.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, application 3, 2600 Government Boulevard. This is application 6111, 5745, and 85. Your name and address for the record, sir.
Sir. Bobby McBride, Row Engineering, 3502 Laughlin Drive, representing Mr. Mondesi. This was held over, and we were asked to submit a more detailed site plan for the project, which we did. We understand we've met the conditions that were required, and we're in agreement with the staff recommendations and prepared to accept and approval.
Okay. This one, as he stated, is recommended for approval based on staff recommendations. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Anyone in the audience in favor? Anyone in opposition today? All right. Staff recommends approval subject to previous existing building actually encroached in the right-of-way. Newly proposed building is set back further, which obviously improves condition. Specific conditions exist with site, size, shape, required setback associated with property such that literal enforcement of the provisions of the chapter will result in unnecessary hardship, and the spirit of the chapter shall be observed with substantial justice done to the applicant and the surrounding neighborhood by granting the variance, in that the subject business would be an improvement to the site and surrounding area. Application is recommended for approval subject to 10 parking spaces for display vehicles.
Yes.
No vehicle hauler trucks allowed to be offloaded within the right-of-way, and full compliance with other municipal codes and ordinances.
Yes.
Okay, and you said your applicants in support of that?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone in the audience in favor? Anyone in opposition today? Okay, staff recommends approval. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
A question about the site plan. It's indicating a fence. Is there a fence?
The staff suggested a chain fence, just a little short post fence with chain hanging that you see around a lot of parking lots typically.
Was that in the recommendations, Bert?
I don't believe it was.
See, I think what we were concerned about last time was them spilling into the right-of-way there, and I'm concerned about the same thing. So I'd like to know that that there was some barriers across, well, all three sides actually around the parking area to keep that from happening.
Well, and since it is depicted on the site plan that the revised plan they submitted, it is a site plan specific approval. So they would be required to put the barrier to prevent the vehicles.
But just some kind, it was not specific as to what it is?
Well, in this case, since they showed it as a fence of some sort, we would require that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay,
That may have been in the, this was came before the board previously, and I think that's what they had recommended back then, I believe. And so we sort of used that for a guide this time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, with Mr. Metcalf's comment taken, I agree that having some specific condition that a chain, whether it's bollards with chains or something to make sure we ensure that nothing's parked in the right-of-way is the condition of this approval. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that for approval, subject to staff's recommendations.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
very much.
All right, we're on application 4, with 2724 Old Shell Road. This is application 6069, 6027, 5706, and 1048. Your name and address, sir?
Hey, I'm Bill Whiston, East Square LLC, address 3070 Dog River Road, Theodore. So this was an extension that I'm not sure we have to have. We've applied for permits. Everything was granted. The variances were granted based on the right-of-way use agreement and non-utility right-of-way use agreements, which we submitted quickly after our last approval, but it took a long time to get through engineering, new software, people out, these sorts of things. So the right-of-way use agreement was a legal document that the city wrote that was executed by the mayor and by us. So that's in place. And then we couldn't get the soil disturbance permit prior to that being done, and now I understand that the soil disturbance permit is also ready. But there was a question about the date that we submitted was prior to the expiration of our approval. There was a question about, was it based on the date we submitted it or the date that it was approved? So we heard both sides and just went ahead and applied for an extension just to make sure we didn't run out of time before it got approved.
Okay.
So I think it's approved and things are moving along like they should. The design plans have been submitted for the building itself, and everyone signed off on that except fire. And I think that there may be an issue there that we didn't know about, and we've got to meet and try to sort that out. But we're working on it.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
So
Mackey.
you mentioned land disturbance permit and the city, but your building permit, maybe I didn't hear. Where?
The building permit, everybody signed off for except fire. Fire is saying that the building has to be sprinklered, which we had a pre-planning meeting. It didn't come up then. We're not being quoted any specific code as to why it has to be sprinklered. It's all concrete, the roof, the whole thing's concrete, and it's going to be subdivided for individual tenants with fire-rated walls.
How big is the building?
It's 12,600.
Make it 11,999.
Yeah, well, we might do that.
But how'd you get your building permits without our approval?
No. I think the issue is that the permits have been submitted and requested. It's just that the permits haven't been issued prior to the expiration of the previous variance. So they were advised out of abundance of caution to come before you again.
Yeah, thank you.
I wish I could have spoken it as well as Bert, but yes.
You did quite well.
Exactly.
All right, any further questions? Anyone in the audience in favor or opposition? Okay. Applicant's asking for an extension. They had previous approval, subject to getting all the other permits and right-of-way agreements and such. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion to extend and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck with your project. All right, application 6117, Sarah Smith for Harrison French and Associates. This is 5245 Range Line Road. Your name and address, please.
My name is Sarah Smith. I'm with HFA representing Walmart. We're at 1705 South Walton Boulevard, Suite 3, Bentonville, Arkansas.
Okay, and have you seen the staff's recommended for denial? You
I
want to
did.
tell us why we should consider otherwise? And your application, probably one of the more confusing ones, at least for some of us.
I think what we're asking for is for informational signs to be larger than 20 square feet. What the size of the wall, I think the front facade, I had it measured out, was over 100 linear feet long. Currently, that store, I'm not sure if the ordinance changed or if there was a variance in place already.
They're probably annexed, wasn't it?
Yeah. Currently, that store already has 4 informational signs that are over 20 square feet, which do not look disproportionate. The current proposal would be 5 signs, informational signs that are over 20 square feet. But Walmart, their most important signs to them that are over the 20 square feet are the signs over the entry vestibules, which would be the grocery and then the home and pharmacy signs. If those were to be shrunk down or we weren't allowed to have them, they would either not be visible or they wouldn't be marking which sides of the store the customers need to enter.
And Mr. Chairman, essentially the summary of the request is at the bottom of page 2 only. So you can see what is existing on the right side of the chart at the bottom of page 2 and what is proposed on the left side of the chart.
Okay.
So Walmart would be asking for all of the new signage listed in the new signage schedule, but would be willing to take less in order to keep those two vestibule signs. So there would be the Walmart Spark sign, the Pickup Spark sign, and then the grocery and home and pharmacy.
So my understanding, based on page 2, is we're talking about 40 square feet difference,
Yes, sir.
which is primarily the, let's see here.
It would look like the addition of the Pickup Spark sign.
Yeah, which is a new sign, correct?
Yes.
So you're actually adding an additional sign.
Yes, we're adding that one, but I was told since we have 2 street frontages that that sign wouldn't be a problem. That would be permitted.
Right, it's just the signs listed at the bottom of page 2, nothing on page 3.
Okay. All right, any questions on the board for the applicant's rep? All right, anyone in the audience in favor or opposition? Okay, there are none. Like I said, it took a little time to read through this because of the standards and existing versus proposed, but we're talking about 40 square feet, and of which they are approved an additional sign based on their.
That's correct.
So the pickup sign is primarily what I see is the additional square footage.
Yes, it's 66.76 square feet. So we've actually dropped other signs smaller.
Okay.
Right, but on the informational signs, which are the basis for this request, they're adding a lawn and garden sign, which wasn't there before. So that's really the issue on that. The pickup with the spark symbol is not being considered as in need of a variance due to the fact they have 2 frontages.
Yeah, that lawn and garden sign is a replacement for the outdoor living sign. So it's not an additional to replace, but it is over 20 square feet.
So the outdoor living and the lawn and garden are a trade-off.
Yes.
So really the pickup is
there's also an auto center sign with an arrow on the front of the store that would be an addition. It's pointing to which direction of the store you're supposed to go to hit the auto center.
Okay.
And it's also
I
over 20.
frequent the store all the time, so of all that you're asking, the auto center directional signs is probably the one thing that would be beneficial I could see, but that's just from being a current customer. I think they pretty much know it's Walmart. They know where, you can tell which entrance is for which. All those other features are already pretty well determined. Even the lawn and garden, most everyone that visits that store knows which section of the building that's on. But the auto center side of it is not clear. I mean, you have tire and lube, but, okay. All right, Chair, entertain a motion. Any further questions for the applicant?
And, Mr. Chairman, so really the only new service, let's say, or activity that we have going on here is pickup. Is that for like the internet sales or the type thing where you order?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it shows what side of the store you're supposed to park
Okay, so
on.
everything else, you're just calling it something different? Outdoor living instead of lawn and garden for people that can't figure that out?
Yeah, Walmart rebranded, so
Right.
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. But the pickup is something new that the store's doing?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question. Are you looking at this for other stores in Mobile? Just out of curiosity?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is not going to be new to us?
No, you'll probably see me again next year. We have another store coming up next year.
Mr. Chairman?
So we're setting a precedent today
Yeah,
as well.
they are refixturing that store, so they're redoing the inside as well, and this is probably concurrent with that.
Okay. Any comments from staff before we move on? We've allowed everyone else to have.
It's a big building that needs signage, and it's set so far back from the street, it does make it difficult to navigate the parking lot without signage, but as our regulations are written.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant. Where's the auto sign with the arrow?
The auto center and the arrow is on the front facade. Let me tell you which side. Let me look before I tell you the wrong thing.
I'm just not seeing it here.
Okay, you see where the lawn and garden sign is? It's right above that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have home and pharmacy on it before?
Yes.
So that's on the building as current?
Well, we'll replace it like for like, because we're gonna paint, and so we rip those signs down and they're damaged.
Yeah, I just, for whatever reason, don't remember that being one of the signs that I see on the building. All right, any further comments or questions? Once again, Chair, entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I just clarified that was with the auto center sign or no?
That's everything that
All
you
right.
got requested.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Next year.
Now, if you try to put auto center on one of your little community neighborhood markets, that probably won't fly. All right, have a good day. Mr. Williams. This is application 6118, 5748, 5627, 3332, and it's for 1514 South Broad Street. And it's been a while, but your name and address.
Comic
for the
relief.
record.
I'm going to wait for a second while Logan, if we may, passes out a little information sheet. This does not change any of the drawings themselves. In preparation for today, reading the staff report, I wanted to make sure I was correct on the size of the lots. And actually, I underestimated the size of the lots, so I made my case harder. So it's not like I did this to make it easier for myself. It's actually a larger lot, which would have meant even larger front yard. So these are actually the supplemental information that really just makes it a little easier to follow the issues at hand, but it does not change the drawings at all, since all this is site plan specific.
Okay.
We'll let you
Well,
read
yours
that
is
for a
as
minute,
you-
and then I will go
All
from
right.
there.
Excuse me, folks, down here. Mr. Williams, as you've seen, the staff's recommended for denial. You want to tell us why we ought to consider otherwise?
Sure. Don Williams, PSC Designs. This is the former Jim Booth Contracting Company warehouse on Broad Street. It is the back entrance to the Brookley complex, Fort Whiting, Airbus, all those areas open out. And the widening of the road has been accomplished in the last couple of years as part of the bringing forth of the development of that, the Brookley Industrial Complex there. This came in front of the board in 2010, I believe it was, which is why I've noted the 2010 design. There were some variances required at that particular point, and let me address those. Our biggest issue is the fact that we're very close to the street. This regional building was done when the Broad Street was not as well developed. In fact, even the picture you see in front of you up above here, it looks like it's being the red clay in anticipation of widening Broad Street there. So it was a very minor street, a very narrow street there at first. And the building was probably an appropriate distance back. In 2010, the probation office for Mobile County wanted to move into about a third of the building, the lower 1/3 of the building. In doing so, they had to go with a subdivision, and in doing so, they had to grant 25 feet extra right-of-way to Broad Street. That immediately created a situation where our building encroached on the 25-foot front setback. The right-of-way line came to us instead of us coming to the right-of-way line. What made it even worse is the building stayed out of the right-of-way, but we were in the 25-foot setback. So when probation people wanted to come back in and put an awning over the front door to protect it, they did that honestly without asking permission, and they were called on the carpet for that and came back in 2010, were granted permission, I believe, or 2012, granted permission for that awning. With that in mind, let me go back through your staff recommendations one by one. Number one, we're talking about the fact of the further encroachment of the awning. We would like to take that awning off and create a more suitable, what I call a temple front, more of a front porch with a covering over top. This is only the one that is affected for the, as you can look back again and see the bigger picture here. You can see in the picture, there you go, down there. That is the entrance on probation, right in that particular corner. Now this situation that brings us up here is the other 2/3 of the buildings that wrap around to the up above it. That is going to be the GSA, Government Services Administration, I believe the title. ICE, the immigration control people, are taking the other 2/3 of the building. And they want a public entrance. Their public entrance is further up the building, and that does comply. They can put a nice little temple front there in front of theirs and stay out of the 25-foot setback. But we would like to mirror that by going back instead of the crummy little awning that's there now that doesn't really work well. We would like to make a nice temple-type front there. Unfortunately, that encroaches a little bit more in the 25-foot setback. This is mitigated by the fact that we're also taking out some of the parking in front. Right now, it's very squeezed. If you look back again to maybe that, well, you can't really see. All the parking for this entire site for the public is squeezed kind of in the front. People are parking over in the diagonally. You can see the little red truck there, diagonally right into the building. And if you have seen it pass by, they're also kind of going to the left and kind of parking on the grass, kind of parking in the right of way, kind of endangering some of the few trees that we were able to put in there. Our proposal would eliminate that parking, so that the little temple front would work a little bit better. We're going to take the public access and shove for the immigration people. Well, we'll do the top one. Up at the top right, we're going to take the public access for ICE and leave it up in that upper right-hand corner. Also in the front yard, because we also have to have a dumpster pad. We'd like to put a fence there in line with the front of the building and have about 6 or 8 spaces for the public. We're taking in the lower part the public parking for probation and moving that around the side of the building. So we're taking them and moving to the side, giving them spaces before we then put another fence and put the private parking to the rear. There we go. Excellent, Mert. Private parking to the rear for the probation. We have to keep that separate from the private parking from ICE. We're learning about all the separations here. So we've got public and private for both tenants on the same lot. Probation will be kind of on the left side of the lot. ICE will be on the right side of the lot. All that is to say, number one, the existing awning, we would like to keep that awning to match, to make it a little bit nicer awning. It does encroach a little bit further than the canvas awning that's there. The second point of the staff recommendation was the landscaping. In redoing this, we are as you can see, a very small amount of front yard anyway as opposed to our largeness of our site. Because we're so large on our site, we have a large front yard requirement there too. That's where my handout comes in. We are not able to use Lucille Street. It has not been vacated. That is the street to the south of us. We're working on a right-of-way use agreement with city engineering, with traffic, with city engineering. They have not met yet to rule on that. We can't count that for or against us. We can also, now with the extra 25 feet given to Broad Street, we cannot count that for or against us. Although just about all of that is greenery, we can't count that. So we're falling short. Our actual front yard is now physically 8.6% of the site if you exclude the extra 25 feet. If we able to use it, we're at 12.5%. But in 2010, what was approved back in 2010 by this board was 3.9% greenery, because you had to exclude also the 25 feet. We are going to 3.8%. We are asking for 300 square feet more in less greenery in the front. Interesting to note, though, very bottom sentence, the 2012 possible design with no parking in the front yard. If we put no parking whatsoever and all grass, nobody gets a front entrance, nobody gets a front sidewalk, the maximum area is going to be for greenery with 2 driveways is 7.0%. So if we put no parking in the front, no temple front, no sidewalk, no parking, we're only going to get 7% of the site anyway. So we're going to fall short of the 7.2 required just because we have driveways to get us to that backyard. So we feel like by pushing that parking further back, here again the federal government gets a little antsy when the public gets that close to the building. We're designing this for level 3 security and bomb proof and super duper glass and super duper walls and super duper fences and stuff. They get a little nervous when the public gets that close. So we're trying to keep the public parking for ICE up in the front. We're putting a probation on the side, which is less paranoid about those kinds of issues. But to answer your, back to number 2, we're really not trying to get away from full compliance of landscaping. We're really just trying to make a safety issue and kind of divorce those public and private issues. And in doing so, we're only adding 300 more square feet of asphalt than we were before. We are at 3.8, 3.9, we're asking for 3.8. The last thing, non-compliance, here again, to bring full compliance, we really couldn't come into full compliance even if we wanted to, because we gave up that extra 25 feet. Our hardship is the fact that the right-of-way line came to us. Broad Street was widened, the city wanted 25 extra feet. We have had to accommodate them to even use the building at all. The other choice would have been to tear down the building. It's an unusable building there. And I don't think anybody wants that. So in doing that, we would like to request that we think it's a benefit if we separate the public and the private. We are going to be better security for the neighbors and for ourselves and for the nearby state docks throughout that area. That's a sensitive area. We think that parking is better organized, and we think we can make a better building look if we make those 2 temple fronts work together.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Williams from the board? Okay, anyone in the audience in favor? Anyone in opposition? In the, I guess, staff report, it said that the board incorrectly indicated that Lucille Street was not open to our south had been vacated. I don't remember any of that, but so we're not to take that into consideration today?
That is something that the Right-of-Way Use Committee would consider. It has nothing to do with the board.
Okay.
And we checked with them this morning. They've had some other issues that bumped their regular meeting back. They normally would have met by now, but for various reasons, they're about another 2 weeks away. So we will abide by whatever they say in the right-of-way use agreement.
Okay, is the building occupied by both tenants currently, or one tenant?
Currently, the probation people are there. They've been there for 6 or 7 years, and the rest is totally vacant warehouse.
Okay, and do they have the parking lots separated based on public versus?
They do. It was a very strong requirement that they had to separate them, and they had very strong requirements of a minimum number of parking spaces. ICE wanted 80 parking spaces private, which is way above the zoning ordinance, but we provide that for them. And okay. Probation's the same way. A lot of extra parking, which caused a lot of extra stormwater retention.
Yeah, I see that you've got retention on both sides of the...
It is flat as a pancake, and George Davis and I are currently working through those issues right now because it's so flat through there.
Would it have been feasible to push the parking farther west, push the western detention pond further back?
You could have moved the detention pond, but you wouldn't have gained any commensurate benefit of parking back there.
Well, you were talking about some of the proposed public parking taking up some of that frontage, street frontage.
Well, the private part needs to be, the public part needs to be kind of out in the front there, which is why our public front doors there. Yeah, our back doors is where all the agents are going through their little pass keys.
And that entrance happens to be right there where the gate is.
The entrance to go to the back, yes. It's in line with the rest of the building.
Okay. All right, no further questions from me. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Metcalf?
As unusual of a feeling that I have here, I actually agree with Mr. Williams.
Lisa, did you get that for the record?
I was going to ask her to put that in the record. There you go. If I can get Doug Anderson to agree with me, I've made a trifecta here. I'm rolling.
No, I agree, and I think that the hardship definitely is the city did do that, and I also feel certain that the city didn't pay for that. But anyway.
But we generously wanted to improve the benefits.
I understand. My motion is to approve the application.
Second.
And I have a second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
You did good.
I get you.
I know.
All right. And we've had 7, so we can skip to application 8. Victor Sign Company. I know I recognized you, I just didn't remember from where. Your application is 720 Schillinger Road South, application 6120/5875. Your name and address?
Yes, sir. Justin Thompson, Victor Sign Company. Our address is 5000 Whitworth Road in Mobile.
Okay, and you've seen staff recommendation that this be denied. You want to tell us why we ought to consider otherwise?
Right. Well, what we're trying to do here is update their logo. Their logo has changed, as you see here. On the left picture is their existing signage. Their new signage is a New World shape, or I say shape, I guess it's a different coloration. And they're now using uppercase instead of lowercase letters. So and that's what we're proposing, to remove both sets of channel letters and reinstall, and signage is not changing size, so they're not gaining any square footage or anything out of this. They're simply updating to a new logo. And also they do have a set of tenant panels as well, that's on a large a structure right there. So they're at the top of that sign as well.
Well, the application statement says that you're asking for a second wall sign.
Well, they have 2 wall signs.
Okay.
But they are only allowed 1 per City of Mobile variance or ordinance. So we're not trying to get another one. We're just trying to get the 2 they have permitted to change the logo.
This site was developed prior to annexation, and the signage that they have also is prior to annexation. So that's why they're having to request the variance to have a second wall sign.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they were in the county when the signs were done.
Mr. Chairman, is it the world, is it the logo that's the second sign?
Well, the combination of the circle and AT&T, they're changing the circle out, and they're also going from lowercase AT&T to uppercase.
I understand, but that's why it's 2.
No, those are grouped together.
There's 2 separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One.
Yes, 2 and yes,
Right.
If I would have looked, I would have.
That's on the parking lot side, and that's the Schillinger Road side.
Okay, I got you.
So they are in a corner suite, and the end of their suite, which is S2, is right at Schillinger Road. So I don't know if they could only have 1 sign. I don't know if they'd rather have one looking at Schillinger Road or looking at their parking lot, so if we weren't able to do both, it kind of leaves an awkward situation of which one do you use there. Do you not let Schillinger Road see, or do you not let your parking lot see? So,
okay.
So that's why we're here today.
Okay, any further questions of the applicant?
And I don't know if this was just answered and I missed it, but why are there 2 S1s on this?
I think that was a mistake in drawing.
Okay.
This was forwarded to me. We're doing this for National Sign Company, and she sent me the drawing packet, and that's how she sent it. I think she had just mistakenly put 2 dots there. I don't know.
Okay.
But no, it's just 1 sign on the front, one on the side.
Okay. Have we had any other changes with signage on this particular complex? I don't recall any.
That across the street.
I don't remember any at this site in terms of signage. I think we might have had a parking ratio variance at one point when Briquettes first went out there or it expanded, but I don't remember signage.
Okay. As I think Mr. Metcalf stated, across the street we had the Golden Corral or somebody, Charlie's.
Well, also,
that was a lot bigger project.
Also, didn't we have infirmary?
Well, that would be on Hillcrest.
Okay.
But this one, we also have had the Wendy's. I think you've had the new Chipotle, and you might have had a few others associated with Westwood Plaza.
Okay, the Plaza, we denied it, if I remember.
Well, the Chipotle's was approved, but I think Wendy's was denied.
Yeah, they wanted to put something over their directional about freshness or something.
Right, and then Wendy's also had the issue with their pylon sign being very high, and we wanted it lowered, and they decided not to do that.
Okay. We're just trying to be consistent.
No,
We've had a lot of issues.
I understand.
West Mobile.
Right.
All right, anyone in the audience in favor or opposition? Any questions of the board? Comments? All right, Chair entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Yep, thank you for your patience. All right, application 6121, 6045. This is 2704 Spring Hill Avenue. And you've been very patient. You've got to see all the drama.
How are you all?
Your name and address, please.
Denise Anderson, Custorde LLC as agent for Fikes Wholesale, 9764 Whithorn Drive, Houston, Texas.
Okay, this one is recommended by staff for approval, subject to some conditions. Have you or your
actually
reviewed it?
we didn't recommend it for approval or denial. We just
Suggested
provide
conditions.
suggested conditions.
Yeah, you didn't approve or deny on this one, that's right. I apologize. This one is, and we've already had this particular site for previous.
Yes, this came before the board for signage, which is the next application after this one. Their signage variance expired, so they had to come back for that. This particular application is regarding planting trees here in their front setback area, which would result in them being in the detention facility, and for having an ATM within the setback along Mobile Street.
Okay. Is that rain or air? I hear.
I'm hoping it's air.
It's a storm, and if that's.
It's a big storm.
Okay, so staff didn't recommend one way or another, but you're requesting, what's the hardship for the property?
So we have a couple of things going on. Staff has not recommended with regard to the trees in the detention area. However, engineering is actually not in support of those trees within that detention area. They have some concerns. What we're requesting to do is actually to line the fence of the detention pond, which would make it more aesthetically pleasing from the street, and that, you know, it would allow us to place some shrubs there. That's what we'd like to do. Having the trees growing within the detention area, while we believe they would survive and live, and we're responsible to make sure they do. We have an agreement because we're already permitted. It just seems a little onerous to have them in there, to be quite honest. So that's one item under 6121. The other item is our ATM. And, you know, as being a good citizen and participating in eminent domain with the Mobile streetscape and beautification, we lost about 15 feet there. And as we purchased that property, when we placed that ATM, we just cannot find another location for it. I know there's a mention through city comments or staff comments regarding a little concern of contraflow there. However, we've got 40 feet between our fuel pump and that ATM machine. And, you know, 40 feet's about 4.5 parking spaces. So easily we can have someone at the pump, at the ATM, and we almost have a 2-lane road between them. So we don't really see that as being a huge safety issue.
Could the ATM be at the southeast corner, where it kind of makes it right by the detention pond, it makes that sweep? Because that would put it within the setback.
There would not be any, are you talking about?
There, coming around a little further down.
So the issue there is there's not enough space between that back of curb and the fence line of the detention area to even service the ATM. And that detention is a vertical detention area, so it drops at 4 feet, and it's fenced.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Mack.
Why are we just hearing about this, this tree variance now? Would that not have been brought up early on?
Well, we have been in discussions with the applicant for several months, in fact, and this is part of the agreement between the city and the applicant in terms of getting the permits issued to get land disturbance underway prior to going vertical on the site.
Okay.
So that's why they're here before you. I mean, staff understands that putting trees in the detention pond is not necessarily a good thing.
But the detention pond is considered it is calculated into the landscaped area?
It can be, yes, and generally it is.
But that's what they're doing?
Yes.
And so they're proposing to put the frontage trees?
Well, in order to be compliant, they have to have, I believe, 7 along Spring Hill Avenue. They're proposing one new one here.
That's correct.
But then they really don't have any other area in the frontage except in the detention facility to plant trees. And, engineering is not necessarily in favor of it, although they would, they can accommodate it. But again, in terms of maintaining the detention facility, it would be much more difficult with trees growing in it.
Certainly.
So we understand the request, but we don't necessarily have a good feeling in terms of providing a recommendation for or against.
It's the owner's responsibility to maintain the detention area.
Okay, any further questions of the board? What I see on the site plan, the green along that detention, south detention, is that like lower story shrubs or something?
Well, as she mentioned, they're going to put in a fence along the edge of the detention wall since it is a vertical drop to the bottom of the pond. And then they are proposing to plant shrubs all along Spring Hill Avenue area. So they wouldn't be understory trees, they would be in fact shrubs to help provide visual buffer of the detention facility. But they're also putting in a nicer fence than would typically be required. I think they're not going to put in a chain link fence, they're going to put in something that has more of a design aesthetic to it.
Okay, so the shrubs along the detention are not a requirement. That's something.
That's correct. They're not a requirement.
So, but it's a green space
It is,
improvement.
yes.
So it kind of offsets the trees in some respect.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Staff, in situations like this, in the past, I think staff has agreed to, in exchange for planting the tree, some dollar amount per tree.
Well, we have, in our suggested conditions, we would say a donation of 6 trees to the tree bank, and that's, I believe it's $200 per tree.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any further questions? All right, anyone in the audience in favor or opposition? Okay, there are none. Chair, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve, a second. What about the,
The condition, the donate to the tree bank as recommended by the staff.
okay, with
It-
conditions?
One question,
Yes.
sir. Would that include, this approval include the requirement that they do the understory shrub along the front?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
and the applicants already proposed that.
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
we proposed.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
proposed.
I just wanna make sure
I
that
think
was-
about 57 shrubs
Okay.
in replacement for
Yeah,
the
I think that's a
trees.
good offset.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes. Okay, I have a motion with a second with the conditions. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Amen.
All right, and I think you got the next one too, don't you?
Now, did we discuss, was that also an approval for the ATM? Because we had 2 items.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the
Thank you.
application.
Yeah. Now, do we have to go back and reapprove the sign and all that?
Their signage expired, and hence they had to reapply, and it is recommended for approval.
Okay.
So
Just a formality, application 6122, 6121, 6045. This is, once again, 2704 Spring Hill Avenue.
Yes, Denise Anderson, Custordia LLC, is agent for Fikes Wholesale, 9764 Woodhorn Drive, Houston, Texas.
And you're in agreement with the staff's recommendations for approval?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Anyone in the audience in favor or opposition? There are none. Questions of the board? All right, staff recommends approval, subject to the conditions listed. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Chair.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting through all
Sure,
this.
thank you very much.
All right, do we have to approve the schedule? All right, has everyone had the opportunity to see the schedule? Any concerns? Other than, let's see here, I'll make sure I see it right. All right, Chair entertain a motion to approve the schedule.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, schedule approved. Any other business?
No, sir, no other business.
All right, Ms. Anderson, we don't have anything hanging out there with you?
Nope.
All right.
Do, but it's still hanging.
All right, meeting adjourned.